Alright, hello everybody, this is Vicious and welcome to the very first technical video on the Ruckus R600 access point setup. I did a little introduction video going over why I have these and what I'm doing with them. This video is going to be how to get one of these set up. Now it's really easy, I've already done one of them and this one is going to be the second one. It's a little bit different because we're using the Unleashed firmware. What you have to do with the second one. The very first step is I bought these off of eBay and they apparently both seem to have come with the default firmware, which is for using with a wireless controller. What we want to do is either configure them as standalone access points, or in my case we're using the new Unleashed firmware, which is very much like the Ubiquity Unify stuff, where we have one page to manage all of our access points, except we don't have to stand up a cloud key or some kind of Unify server. Instead, the first access point acts as a master and controls the rest of them, and if the master access point goes down, then one of the standby access points actually takes over as the new master. So it's really cool because it's redundant and we don't have to stand up any new systems. So like I mentioned before, and I can't see what's on screen, so I'm hoping I've got it on screen. We have a PoE port and we also have a DC 12 volt jack here. You can power these off of either one. I'm running it off of PoE right now. I plugged it in, gave it about a minute to boot up, and then I took a paper clip and pushed down our reset button for about 30 seconds. Watched all the lights do their thing, let go of it, and let it boot back up again. This way I know it's at a factory default before I gave it any kind of connectivity. So I'll set that down. You get a sneak peek at my two new Brocade switches, which will eventually replace down there below the Aruba switches once I'm done using the Aruba switches for all the other videos I'm doing for those. Console cable to the laptop to control the switch, one connection to the access point, one connection to my laptop. I want this completely isolated from my network while I set it up, and then once we get it set up, we will plug it into the network and then we'll get it configured as our second access point. So let's go ahead and do away with the camera view. Let me go ahead and get onto a screen capture for you, and we'll talk about what we need to do next. Alright, so forgive the switch noise. These Brocade switches are not nearly as quiet as those Aruba switches. When I get to the Brocade videos, which will be happening soon, one of the very first videos I'll be doing is a fan modification to make that switch perfectly silent. I'm also right in front of it and it's not on a rack, so that's also why it's a little bit louder. So I've got screen capture going. I just turned on the PoE power on that port a second ago. That's why it was in here. And let's talk about how we set this up. So on the back of the access point, it tells you the IP address, the username, and the password that are the factory defaults for these Ruckus R600 access points. The IP address that it uses is 192.168.0.1, and I want to be able to reach that. Chances are, if you don't go change your network settings, you're not going to be able to reach that because almost nobody uses that network as a default. So let's go into our properties on our wireless or wired connection. I have a static IP in here, and I assigned myself an IP address on that 192.168.0/24 subnet, and now I can communicate with it. Also, something to keep in mind, there's 5 ways these access points, or I should say 5 different kinds of firmware for these access points. There's one for the cloud management, which costs money. There's one for Zone Minder, I don't remember what it's called, something Zone. That's one of their wireless controllers that costs money, and there's another controller that costs money. There's 2 free options. There's the standalone firmware, which is where you're configuring the access point as an individual unit. It doesn't configure with any kind of central management. You would just use, you know, either an SSH session or something similar to configure that. Or there's the Unleashed, which is what I'd recommend to everybody who's not in the enterprise and someone who's a small business or someone who's doing a home lab. The Unleashed gives you a nice web interface and it's centrally managed very much like the Ubiquity Unify. So I've downloaded the newest Unleashed firmware already, which is a BL7 file. Currently that's the version number you can see on screen. Now keep in mind, you do not have to pay to license this. It is free, but you do have to create a Ruckus user account to download that firmware. For the viewers, I'll make sure that I put that on my Dropbox so you can download it directly. So we can get to it. What we want to do now then is go ahead and launch our web interface. It does have a web interface. So that'll be 192.168.0.1. And we want to go ahead and say it's cool to go to that website with no certificate. Alright, now our username is super and the password is sp-admin. And we got our two interfaces. We see one interface is up, one's down. We're going to go straight to management under the administration. No, I'm sorry, we want to go to upgrade under maintenance. Now you can see this trivial FTP, standard FTP, web, and there's local. So we're going to go ahead and use local and browse to the file that I already have and start that upgrade. Now let me walk away from the switch and I'll keep talking while that's updating, so you'll see it on screen while I'm walking away from it. Now that's the cool thing about wearing my microphone instead of sitting at my desk. Let me talk about how Unleashed works. So I'm sitting down and I can talk to you guys for a sec. The Unleashed firmware, again, free. It gives you a central pane of glass to manage everything from. And what happens is the very first access point that you configure becomes your master. And that's the one that acts as the controller. And then any other additional access points up to a certain number, I think it's 12 or 16, maybe 24, I can't remember exactly. If they're on the same network, same layer 2 network, they will automatically detect that there's already a master access point and automatically become a standby access point. So in this video right now, we're not going to go through the steps to configure it as the master, but I'll tell you how. It's super easy. Basically, right now we're accessing through the IP address on the web interface. Once we put the Unleashed firmware on here, we would actually connect to its SSID. It will broadcast a new SSID called Configure Me, and then you're going to open up a web page which is unleashed.ruckus.wireless.net or something along those lines. I'll put it up on the video as a text insert or down in the video description. Or you can do an IP scan to figure out what IP address that it has and go straight to the IP address once you've connected to the SSID. So it becomes a self-serving AP where you connect to its SSID. You can use your phone for this as well, and there's even an app that you can download for your phone that's free. And then you go through the steps, and it's just a really easy wizard. You're going to choose your name for the access point, what kind of networking do you want, static or DHCP. You run through that wizard, and once you're done with it, that access point becomes the master. So what we're doing right now is we're going to get the firmware installed, and the switch is not connected to my network, so it will not become the standby until I connect it to my other network. So I'll wait till the upgrade's done, show you guys the SSID that appears, and then we'll pretty much just disconnect it, plug it into the network where the other access points existing, and then we'll log into the master AP, which is already up and running, and we'll watch it appear as the new standby, and then we'll configure it. So it actually is going to be pretty much covering all of the configuration. We'll just be skipping the wizard for setting up the original master. So it looks like I'm walking back over now. Looks like we're all done. Let's go ahead and reboot. So at this point, let me close this down. I'm going to go turn on the wireless on my laptop. And let's go look for that SSID. So it's going to be called Configure Me. There it is right there. So I'm going to go ahead and connect to it. Alright. And we'll open up our browser. And I probably have this saved as a recent, so it should be Unleashed. There it is. Unleashed.ruckuswireless.com. And that will resolve on its own with its own little internal DNS. to the IP address that the AP currently has. And here is where we would run through and configure the master access point. I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of this, unplug the access point, plug it into the network, and move over to my desktop, start a new desktop capture over there, get the other microphone out, and continue the tutorial over on that side so you can see how everything looks once it's all configured. Alright, so welcome back to the final leg of our journey, and now I'm back in my comfort zone, sitting in my comfortable computer chair with my nice microphone and my multiple monitors. This is where I like to get down to business. So what I have right now is the master access point that I set up earlier today before I did any of the videos. This is the one that's already configured as the master access point with the unleashed firmware. So this is what it looks like. It is not as pretty or as robust as the Unify environment, but it actually has a lot of features down in it once you dig into it. For example, here's the Unify environment, and you can see everything is now disconnected because it's no longer in service. I am basically copying the settings I used as far as like what channels and all that, and moving that over to the new ones. So we have quite a bit of information here. We can really dive down deeper as we click deeper and deeper into everything. The status of everything is amazing. I have nothing but poor signal, and this is only one AP. I don't even have the one in the back of the house set up yet. So my SSIDs and my passwords are the same. All my clients are here. I can see their IP addresses. It tries to do some fingerprinting. It tries to pull their names. It tells me where it's connected. I mean, I am really happy with what it offers because this is all you really need. The way that this is going to work is once I plug in the one we just programmed with the unleashed firmware, it'll automatically get configured. So I don't have to do any configuration. It'll pull my SSIDs, my passwords, everything will be automatically passed down as part of the group. And then if this access point goes offline, then that one becomes the new master. So that's really cool how that works for us automatically. So let me go ahead and let's close this down. We see one access point. Let's time this. Let's see how long it takes for this new access point to show. And I haven't done this yet, so I just know this is what's supposed to happen, is that it's supposed to automatically get detected and brought into my environment. It's working. Two of them here, one working, one disconnected. Surely this is, it took a while to initialize the master AP, so surely it's going to take a little while to initialize the standby AP as well. And as soon as this is not disconnected anymore, we'll go ahead and start doing some minor configuration on it. And refreshing. So as far as other videos that I'll go in this series, and I'm sorry for the dead space while we wait on things, I don't know how many videos we want on this AP setup. So you guys let me know. Obviously, the initial setup and configuration is the important thing, and that's what we're doing right now. The reason I'm doing everything was kind of the introduction video. We already did that as well. I'm thinking one of the things I did like about the Ubiquiti Unify, because my name around here is Admin Dad, and I control all things administrative and technology related. if say the kids get grounded or something like that, I can literally just log into the Unify, go to the clients or devices and insights areas and block their devices. So I could block their internet access from there, which was really nice, but I never found a way to automate it very easily. And that's one thing I didn't like about it. I feel like with enterprise switches like this, there'll be an SSH command I can send, and then I can automate the SSH through AutoIt or through cat tools or something along those lines. So I have a feeling I'll actually be able to one-up my game with this, but just in case that's not the case, we'll find out later on. There should be a lot of other cool things we can do with these access points, but if I can find out how to do Wi-Fi scheduling, guest portals, anything you guys want to see, you let me know. Now, as far as what's going on, it looks like it's up now. We can go ahead and start editing things here. So let's edit this second access point. We're going to call him, I call the first one just front house. Yeah, so let's call this one back house. And for the radios, I am actually, there's another place to override this, I think. Let's see. Override. Okay, I know what's going on here. Group config 1.127. All right, so I definitely want to do a manual IP. I've already picked out an IP address for this guy. It's going to be 192.168.1.230. Gateway is 234. That's all correct. So we'll wait for him to come back up again. So what I might have done earlier was I was under the Wi-Fi networks, and no, that's what I want. Under advanced options, I did a few things. Under access radio, I enabled the fast transition, and I enabled load balancing. So those are a couple things I did under the WLANs. I did that for both of the two SSIDs I use here. Under the access points, all right, I see what I did. So I did a global. I changed the configuration on the global instead of the individual, which is not what I want because I only had one access point. I didn't know the difference. So I'm going to fix that right now. So instead of having a global configuration for channel 1, we'll put that back on auto. And instead of having channel 36, we'll put that back on auto. I will come in here and tweak this stuff a little bit more later once I see what my transmit power and all that should be. The preferred on the master. Let's save those new defaults. And now let's individually edit these. So this is where it goes into the override. So override, I only want you to, I want the 20 on the width for the channel, and I want channel 1 on the 5 gigahertz. Let's go back. I want to use 36. And I usually use 40 on this. I'm kind of tempted to try auto out, but I'll set it for 40 for now. And I did set my IP to 231. But again, if that was, all right. Now we'll do the other one. So on here, my channel is 20 for the width, and we're going to use channel 11. And on the 5 gigahertz, we're going to use 40, and it's actually going to be 161. And I'm not picking these out of the air. I have done numerous wireless surveys. Nobody's using these 5 gigahertz channels in my area, which is great. That's the good thing about 5 gigahertz. The 2.4 is completely congested all the way across the board. It seems like 11 is a little bit less of a problem than the others, but pretty much everything else is terrible. And you really only have 3 good choices anyways, 1, 7, or 11. So I just went with 1 and 11, which keeps my 2 access points far away from each other and they don't have to have any trouble with interference. So we'll OK that. And that's it, guys. Now I have a 2 access point setup, and I will have to wait and see what happens after I let these sit for a little while, see how the load balancing works and how the access points handle that, because the Ubiquiti Unifies did not do good at all as far as sharing the clients. And right now the AP is still right next to me, which means it's right next to the other access point. I'm going to go ahead and install this in the back of the house, and maybe in a future video I'll get back with you with how these guys are performing in the long run. So once again, this is Vicious. I hope you guys enjoyed this probably very long video. Found something useful out of it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them down in the comment section. Please let me know if you know anything else you want to see from these. I have them installed so they're ready to do some testing and some cool configurations with. I'll see you next time.